So this game came out today on Steam and on mobile. That means on App Store for iOS, for smartphones and tablets, and on Google Play for Android, and also actually not only on Steam for desktop but also on the Mac App Store. And on Steam it has a 50% discount for the first week, so you should get it now. Anyway, so this game is a bit of a weird game because it's a narrative game. It's a small narrative game. It's not a huge, wide, with many endings, many stories in it. So it's a small narrative game, but it goes along a championship, and so where you can play turn-based, but still quite fast and hopefully exciting matches, and so this makes it quite peculiar. Also, in the game, we touch many themes about football and its universe, which sort of try to give an explanation why football is so popular and why it moves people so much. And so it's kind of an inquiry into this theme. Anyway, so the game comes out in 8 languages and on multiple platforms. So I'll play in English, which is the language in which the game was originally written. And okay, so if I do a new game, I will start with a full narrative. If you can always do a single match game, which means that you will just train your skills in playing cards and balancing matches without having to go through a full narrative. Actually, as we have a call in a few minutes, in a few minutes, I'll go with a single match. Okay. So you see, in the single match, so one of the 10 teams, and of course one is ours, and it's always Colchester assembled, and so with the single match we play against one picked at random, and of course all the teams are mocking existing ones or parts of existing ones, and all like this. And actually I would like to do a sort of competition, like give a Steam code to the first who tells us about which real teams the 10 teams are referring to. Oh, so I see the Muesli, our friends We're Muesli, who are this game development and design company from Milan. So I will actually have to close the game. I'm not a Mac user, so I'm panicking, but so it shuts down, and let's go to Skype, put in another window for the moment. Yeah. Hi. I'm live streaming. Ready for a call. So if we click live too. Okay. So I'll call. Let's see if our setup works. Jesus, the audio is really. Hi, you hear me? Wait just a second. Now you're going live. Smile. So how's life?
It's party.
Yeah,
It's out.
it's out. It's out. It's out.
How do you feel?
Oh, I forgot to wear my football drama T-shirt.
Well, you wore it so you were wearing everywhere. So maybe today today was too much. So one thing for people who've been playing football drama, yeah, this is perfect as you're showing up now, Matteo, because you may recognize him from the game.
Oh, really? Oh,
That's a spoiler for one of our questions.
Yeah, that's-
Actually.
Ah, sorry, sorry.
But yeah, maybe we can talk about that too.
yeah, maybe I can make that question then.
Yes.
No, we have a few questions for you, and the one is pretty. We hope it's interesting because I mean, we know you put a lot of research into football drama, but we also know that you were not actually born a hardcore fan, right?
Yes.
So we were wondering if there was like a single football-related fact or story or anecdote that you encountered during your research that made you realize that was that aha moment when you were like, okay, I really need to make this special football game because football itself is a special sport somehow.
Yeah. Before answering that, I will tell you a short thing to everybody who's listening is that actually I met Matteo and Claudia, and just before I think a year before I had the idea of making a game on football. And in fact, discovering that so many of the game designers, writers, I was discussing it, like Matteo, had this hidden, enormous, detailed passion and knowledge about football. I mean, like knowing all the players of a secondary league or things like this. This is one of the reasons why I made this game, because it made me really think. So he's one of the guys I said, maybe even him is so. No, you would never think of Matteo, but also he has also other very very interesting sports. Very very.
My detailed obsessions with sports is much more targeted at another beautiful discipline.
It's so difficult to live with a person like him because he has details and obsessions about everything. He's very small.
Yeah.
Wondering that obsession in my personal case is with professional wrestling. That's my personal.
Can I take your belt?
Where is my WWE belt?
I'm gonna take it
somewhere.
for you.
Okay. Yeah, whatever.
It's so in fact, so this also brings me to another thing, which is a beginning of an answer to your question. Is so sometimes when I started studying these things, and I sort of said, I learned this thing which is really bizarre about, I don't know, some guy from Naples who was doing spells behind the goals or things like this. And then I went to people like Matteo and I started saying, I discovered this, and they look at me, like everybody knows this. I mean, you must be the only guy. And it's so I started thinking, this is really interesting. There must be something there really really magical. And so I don't know if there's anything well, I'm so tired that my mind is completely empty. So maybe single things, but it was this feeling that there was something escaping it in the fascination and the power, also the social power of the sport. This is one thing, and the other thing is the mixture in the non-football people social perception of football as a really negative thing, and on the other side, I think it's Galeano. I read like yesterday I remember one of his sentences, which is, if I had to explain happiness, I would give a ball to a child. Okay, and you will soon find out that.
Yeah, we're not at the goals yet.
No.
Yeah, it's still about like wandering around and discovering the world. But yeah,
kicking,
I think both will be coming soon.
Yeah, our child is kicking other balls right now, but you know. But yeah.
But you will see, you will be amazed by the power of a ball.
Sure.
Yeah, we are already amazed every day. Yes, we have a small, tiny child, which is now fed right now in this moment by the best nanny we could have, because it's your father. So
yeah, it's right on the other side of and my father is actually like feeding him with him.
With the baby bottle.
Great
question, which is spoiled already, but I'd like to know a little bit of insights about. Well, the funny question was, were the visual references inspired by some friends of yours? That was the funny question. But the real question is, what are the visual references behind football drama? Because it has an aesthetic that really, it's something beyond the common look of any football games.
Well, thank you. And in fact, this is one of the positive things that even the few negative reviews are saying about the quality of the illustrations. But so what were the inspirations? Well, like one thing, one of the many things which I discovered and wondered is that like if you take the posters of the World Cups, and in fact on our making of video on YouTube, there's a part dedicated to that, and they are really amazing. And they have this like Soviet Russians or even the fascist regime, and they express their times so beautifully. And again, you find such an incredibly refined taste in something that, well, people like me who didn't know much about it, they didn't expect it. Let's confess. So
I never thought about that, but it's seriously like a compendium of 20th century and beyond art. It's true.
And but of course, because of so one nice thing of this game is that Daniele Giardini, who created the characters and the cards, so the design is actually by two people, because Daniele Giardini created the characters and the cards, but then the whole design and UI and animations and all the smoothness that you find, all the little effect, the fact when they move, the ball explodes and changes colors, and all the little details which in a game like this are like more than half of the whole effort are by Pino Panzarella, and they work together really wonderfully and integrating stuff like the town that we use in the game in several, which is Colchester, which is Manchester, of course, and it's by Pino. So they even mixed together their characters and illustrations. But of course, so one of the things I would say is the strength of the characters and cards come from two things. One is because Daniele has this very long career in comics, and you can see it, of course. In fact, he pushed so much to have these comic-inspired styles that we introduced this usage of camera and cuts and zoom in and zoom out. That's a direct influence of comics. And it's unfortunately in games, dialogues in games, differently from like spectacular animation things, are not so much something that there's not so much research into it, but we did a lot of work on that. And so this is one thing. The other thing that one of the players pointed me out, which was really revealing, like a couple of days ago, he said, "No, we can see from the illustration that this guy actually hates football." And he said, "Yeah, it's true. It was really hard to bring Daniele into this game, and but I think he too learned that there are some beautiful parts in the game."
Let's say that Daniele and Pino brought beauty everywhere in the design, I must say so. Because as you said, every little details, it's even like the selection of the fonts, for example, typography, so like amazing.
Yeah.
And not so seen in games. I mean, typography is not something investigated. There's so much investigation in every little aspect.
I read about one of the visual inspirations was also coming from, like, for instance, art from the Weimar Republic. Am I right?
Well, actually, that is a posteriori finding, because I recently went to the Tate in London, and this was thing, and I said, but this is Daniele's style. And so I took some pictures and I showed to him, and he said, "Oh, of course, obvious. I know him very well." And he started telling me about this designer and so on. And said, "Okay.
Yeah. It's an old trick we also used to play frequently. Yeah.
But yeah. One thing I want to tell you, which is interesting, and somehow that some of the criticism, because I mean, for instance, yesterday all these reviews are coming out, and like they're really nice and so well written and amazing. But of course, even those who like the game, they point out, I mean, it's not it's a small production, and so like the narrative scope is limited. But in fact, this is also due to the fact that we spent so much time in refining the UI and also the matches. The matches. I mean, in my initial ideas, it would go like 90% of the time in the narrative and the story, and like 10% in the match and the rest of. But instead, when I started showing prototype, the people were asking more and more features. Also you, I think. On the match part, making it quicker, smoother, nicer. In fact, one thing I want to do is I will publish an old version of the game, which does not have the game feel refinement, to show how much it changed. And it can be interesting also if someone is studying game design, how from the working prototype to the game feel is like doubling the work. And so much of the narrative didn't go into the final game, because a few months ago I made a timeline, and I saw that it would have required at least another 6 months to cover what I wanted to. So we had to cut it down, and yeah, somebody has to say something about this, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's a great insight, and it's also pretty related to another question that I wanted to ask you. That is, to quote our common mentor Kanye West, this thing. Kanye West quote actually said something else, but okay, let's call it a thing. That is games is hard to do, man. We were wondering. I was wondering which was like the hardest thing to balance somehow, or to focus, since you made a game that, as you said, has all this narrative side and all the narrative design that's behind it, but at the same time there's the whole football matches sequences with their own mechanics. So I was wondering, you already mentioned like a percentage of some sort, but I was wondering what was the biggest game design challenge. Was it more like on the narrative side, the mechanic side, the relationship between the two of them? So how did you manage to balance it all? Like,
you know what I did at a certain point? I said, this is impossible. So I'll just go at random. So in a way, in a sense, and because I'm an old guy and I've seen so many projects that I think I was feeling, oh, I'm losing control. I'm losing control. And then so many times I have to just let it go, and by sort of miracle, it will work. And that's what I did, because again, if I started saying, okay, now I'm going to integrate every aspect of the narrative with the championship timeline, which is fixed, and on the parallel side you have widening. So the point is, if you're in the wrong week and the player didn't do this choice at this point, it will need to do it after this week. So I have to branch all the time. So I mean, it becomes a huge work, and we didn't have the time and the money, basically the money. So I said, I had somehow an idea. I had set it up how they would integrate through the cards, but I didn't somehow plan it. I said, let's just keep going and finish mostly the gameplay in the championship, and the narrative has been sort of what's on top of that. But I didn't have a mega plan, so it sort of worked. But I know that it's far from what it could be if one has had the means.
Sure. But that's great.
Yeah.
What we really want to say again, and say it
Aloud.
Yeah, that I mean, thank you for bringing this gem to life, because we really loved it since day one or so during its process. So well done, and thank you for making this game and making it real, making that one.
Well, I have to also tell everyone that in fact, if the matches go smoothly and fast, and if the dialogues and balloons are so nice, it's due also to their feedback, because this was part of their feedback. In particular, the problem with the matches not flowing enough, or being too cumbersome, if you remember. And so they still something that they're not smooth enough, but also that is partially intentional. I could have made it smoother and faster, but the problem is not the smooth and faster because people want to have action all the time. But that's not how football goes. And I learned from the real football fans that boring and there's just exchanging the ball in the middle and nothing happening almost for 89 minutes. It's really a big part of football fascination, and so I left it in the game. So that's an excuse for game design mistakes.
There's a famous gag in The Simpsons about like how football works from an American, not American perspective. Passing the ball that it for 85 minutes.
Yeah.
But thank you, Pietro. Thank you
so much
for having us, and enjoy this great release.
You deserve it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Talk soon.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao. Okay, sorry. So, again, So we have a random. This is just a single game that we are just playing for training before entering the narrative. Also, consider that the narrative is sort of permadeath. And so if you actually, so you maybe you make your choices, you play, you go along the story, but if you get fired from the match, if you get fired from your club, you will have to restart the game from the beginning. So careful what you do. Okay, so if we start, the game, you see, assigns us 5 cards at random, and these cards, so this is a bit misleading in the sense that the cards that you win in the game are cards that represent somehow your style of living, the way that you live. Instead, in the single match, you get assigned random cards, so there's no alignment between your style of living and the cards that you have available in matches. Okay, so okay, so these are the cards, and okay. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so this is a little tutorial, which shows the first time you play. So you're always the red team, and of course when you're home, it's on the left, and when you're away, it's on the right. But of course at halftime they change sides, but the supporters swapped. Blue is your adversary, and so this part is very important. You will see during play, because it shows you the power which is computed from the many dimensions, and in fact it's a quite complex calculation, and you will have to keep attention all the time, not just to the strain, because you tend to focus on the strain because too much strain will block your risky moves, but also try to consider also these 3-dimension passive, focus, and surprise that will change along a wave. There's a wave function, and each of the teams has its own wave function, and composed with your team status, which you change using the cards and your life choices from the narrative, because somehow it's how much prestige you have, and how much you can influence the team. So this way, so all this gets together in a function that determines your results. So the game looks very simple. That is, you just have 2 buttons, and so you always can be cautious of the risky move, but it's not actually that simple. Okay, so too much strain blocks risk. This move is always the less risky one, but the content and what you're doing with the less risky move is relative to your situation. So it may be a penalty, you may be controlling the ball, or as in this case, you're not controlling the ball, so you're defending somehow. And again, you can be more or less aggressive. More aggressive moves are riskier, and they have more likelihood of gaining ground, but of course it creates fatigue, and once you have too much fatigue, the risky moves are blocked, and actually, I will give you a tip. Fatigue is one of the few factors, together with karma and chaos, that actually goes from one match to the next one. So if you always risk during a match and always pushing your team, you may get the result, but don't be surprised if you get bad result in the following match. Okay. So these are the benches, and here it shows if you're using a tactical formation, which formation you're using, but also it will show you how you're balancing karma and chaos as a manager. And this is the special button from which you can play the cards, which are special moves. So the cards are actually sort of shouts that you do from the bench, giving to the team styles of action, but they don't determine the single thing that the team will do. They somehow give them a hint, and depending on what's your prestige and your relationship with your team, they will execute it or not, or fail. But also not only from that, because whether a card succeeds or fails also depends on how difficult for the current team state this card is. So if for example you're playing zonal and your team is scarce in technique, in tactics and technique, probably the zonal card will fail because they're not capable of doing it correctly, and so on. Okay. Let me see. What time? Yeah, well, I think we have time before the next call. Let me see. Let me check.
20 minutes.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so Danielle is calling in 20 minutes. So one thing that I notice grown-ups when they play the game, and generally people on the desktop don't notice, is that you can click. So you can click everywhere here, and something happens. Like you can click on the journalist and hit them with a ball. You can click here and see the stats of the competing team. You can click on the field and you hear these vuvuzelas. This is actually very useful also when you're mobile, when you're tapping on your phone, because, well, look at this. If I this is for, let's say, once you played one of the matches and you wanna speed up the rhythm of matches. So here it goes normally. Okay, normally everything goes to rhythm so that I can read, I can watch, I can think. But if you're fed up, you wanna have a faster match team, you can just do this. Tap here, tap, everything goes faster. You see? I immediately jump to the next move. So, and this on mobile is quite natural, so kids find it out by themselves soon, but adults maybe sometimes never will. Okay, so we are in danger here, and we can also explore by clicking this one. So if you're a more technical user, you can explore what's the state of the different dimensions, and you will learn. You can click here to get an explanation what they actually are. So dominance, conditions, skills, tactics, stamina, aerial attack, and so on. So typical dimensions of a football team. And of course, when you win cards, you see the same symbols, and you have explanations of those. So you will connect once you become an expert player the card, which cards influence which dimension, and so on. So you can click in here, you sort of see what's happened, what was the balance of red and blue power. In this case, the blues are stronger than us, and there's also a combination random factor. So this was the random results and the blue one. Okay, so now, so we're in the box in danger, and we can pick the passive defense, which means we will not increase the strain and we'll have lower risk of penalties, but of course also will be lower chances of actually gaining control of the ball. So I'll go risky move, active defense. Okay, this action is semi-scripted. That is, the pattern is scripted, but then each of the agents move according to a little intelligence, and of course where the ball goes is always different, and where it hits the post goes wide, and so on and so on. So we had got control for a little while, but we lost it immediately. And okay, so let's see, 19 strain, I can go with the tackle. Notice how much I click here so I can speed up everything. after each move, and I risk it and risk it. Too much strength, so if it's a foul. Okay, there's an opening. I should have. I'm playing badly. I should have had some power to risk, some energy for risking. Also, they're complaining that my way of playing is boring. So my own game is insulting me. And okay, so to risk here, no, I need control because the strength is too high. And I risk, let's pretend. yeah. So you see the support, my own supporters are sort of mocking me, and what they're saying actually is inspired by real chants of football supporters, which are really funny sometimes, and this shows how much humor can play a big part in football, and that's the nicest side of it. Okay, so control 49. No, let's control again. So yeah, I lost the ball. Okay, let's mark it. So I'm really lower than power, so I must change something in the team. So let's play a card that can somehow yes, this card. This is a good card, but it's hard, so I don't know what I will actually do it. Risk. Yeah, I knew it was hard, so you see, it's not wrong. Also because this is a single match, so I haven't had opportunity of building prestige with my team, so it's more likely that cards will fail in such a situation. Okay, I'm really high. You see how much it changes if you know how to use speed up, passive defense, and that was really lucky. Okay, let's see if so the ball went out, so it's my control. Here we're about first half. Yeah, now it's time to go. Yes, free kick. And I don't have much strength, so this is a really good situation. Even though surprise is high, and surprise is important when you're attacking. So let's see. Bounced on post. Okay. So I gotta gain the ball now. No, nothing. He's boring. Come on, boys. Yes, I'm coming. Don't lose the ball. Just don't lose the ball now. Okay, I'm so weak. I really should try again with cards. Yeah, let's do this one. This is way long, high forward passes. All bad teams like mine always resort to this when they really have no idea what to do now. Okay. Oh. Nothing. Come on, I need the card. Come on. Yes. Let's see. What does this change? Wow, that's cool. 67, then they will be strained, I hope. Yes. That was a terrible fall. Maybe should have been red card. Anyway, so yellow card means that they are a little bit weaker now. Come on. Okay. At least it's a draw. At least it's a draw. Okay. Yeah. So this is nice too. So the players, your team sort of computes with respect to what's their state and the results of the match, of course, what could be something useful. So they think that actually doing mock opponents. So we have these karma cards and these more chaos oriented cards, and don't think that that the game, you can sort of win the game only by being charismatic. You can be very chaotic and be very effective as a manager. So okay, so second half. So switch sides. Of course, the supporters didn't, which took me some time to, of course, for my weak mind to understand it. It makes sense. Okay. Perfect. I started by immediately losing the ball, and they're even coming. Well, let's tackle them. So a free kick. No, nothing. Okay. Defense. Corner. Pass it. No. Whew. Okay, bounce on crossbar. Okay. So one card succeeded and one. So I'm still much weaker. This was too hard for my play, but so the advice for mock opponents. Let's do this. It's crazy. Yeah. Maybe that make them nervous, and probably it's not too hard as a card. At least if you 7% strain. I think I haven't done a single shot, and people is telling me that the matches are too long. I mean, how can it be? I mean, you need some time, and also football is not a short game. Okay. So so 25. Come on, 2 cards failed. I mean, this is it's a disaster. Yeah, very high strain, so no chance of attacking. And control, risk, control, risk it. Yeah. Marking, no. So they're actually, this was a really bad shot. So now I have control. Okay, let's see if I can manage to do something. So didn't manage to control the goal kick. Not even the goal kick. But chance, as football is. I suddenly have a chance, which I didn't expect. And no. Now it's high, and of course I lose the ball. Well, let's hope that they're boring, and so the game somehow punishes them. No. I think I'm gonna lose this match. Risk it. Control. Risk it. No, this is really like Italian football. So, no scores. Tackle. Oh, come on. Again. Active and reward. I knew it. Okay, so I'm live streaming my first day of the game, which is of course beating me. So what could be worse? Okay, I'm sure Daniele would be happy and laughing if he's watching. That's my giant. You shouldn't trust him, and he's the author of all the illustrations and the characters, and he doesn't like football. So of course you shouldn't trust him. And again, control, mark, tackle. No, I'm playing so badly. Come on. No, I don't believe it. It's the 98th minute. Pass it, otherwise I'm sure getting a penalty. And that was supposed to 0. I'm so ashamed. Okay, so don't buy this game. Don't buy this game. Yeah, I lost it. I think I need a break. Yeah. Yeah, in 5 minutes I have Daniele. I'll take a short break. I'll be back.
Hello, but where is this happening? Where is the link?
So if you look at my tweets, it's like two or three tweets ago. I posted all 4 the links on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook.
Who are you, Pietro Polsinelli?
Yes. Okay. Can you turn on the camera?
No, there's no way that I'm turning on the camera.
Come on.
Okay, give me a moment to find your live. Ta, 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 ta,
So
ta.
Daniele is he did the illustration of Football Drama, all the characters and also all the cards. And he had to learn a lot about football for doing the cards, and this was very hard for him. And
Let's not use big words. I didn't learn. I was just told some things now and then.
well, I was trying to give you some let's say some prestige, but nothing. And
I live for truth.
Okay, and but also because he believes, he thinks he's an illustrator, but actually he's a very good developer, which is way more important. And he developed all the tools with which we use for integrating the narrative and the gameplay. And this tool is called Outspoken, and it's really great. Actually, many people know Daniele De My Giant because of his tweening engine, which is like the reference tweening engine for Unity development, and which is also free, but you should buy the pro version and support him. And yeah, but so this narrative tool called Outspoken was really important in developing Football Drama, because it made it natural to integrate variables and events that were happening in the championship and the live with the dialogues and so on. So yes, and also Daniele I must admit, he's very expert in game design, but he's also a writer. I think he wrote the text for a game which is coming out in October.
In theory, at the beginning of November. But
beginning of November, which is called Still There.
So
And
who knows how long it will still be there? Yes. I'm sorry.
So terrible. Okay.
Happens all the time.
And yeah. So okay, so you carefully prepared questions about Football Drama to be discussed.
Oh, that's what this was all about. Questions. Okay. So first questions. Can I swear?
No.
Really? Oh, come on. Can I smoke?
Yes.
Oh,
it's
okay.
Yeah. That's why you see, Rocco is smoking. So that's why
It's an educational game.
it cannot be bought by kids of age 12 or lower.
Okay. But let me understand. The first, I have a questions here. So I cannot swear because we're live on YouTube, but I can smoke. Isn't that worse?
I have no idea. I'm just saying things at random. I have no idea.
About this thing that you say at random, how much of what you wrote is written on the fly, like at random? Like, oh, I woke up and I wanted to write this, and how much is thought in the whole universe of a plot? How much is spontaneous and how much is plotted?
It's, well, it's all spontaneous because that's how I write. So in fact, some of the reviews somehow some appreciated it, some less. In a sense, I have this bit chaotic and full of references kind of style, but so that's how I. But everybody, well, whichever is your style, I know I'm aware of the fact that writing needs a lot of editing,
Yes.
after that. So I don't want to give support somehow the belief that writing is this spontaneous thing, and then and no, it's a craftsmanship as
And it
anybody.
leads at least some editing also from external sources.
Yes.
That's part of the, yeah. That's why
Yes.
we have also this exchange often where
Yes.
you
Yes.
send me stuff or I send you stuff, and then we do horrible things to each other.
Yeah, well, it's of course because that's
Friendly.
we enjoy the sadistic part of destroying each other's writing. So that's basically our motivation in life in general, probably.
Absolutely. Because as long as you have respect, you can treat your friends badly, right?
I don't
No.
have any respect, but anyway.
I know. That is my dream, that there's reciprocal respect, but I know that it's one-sided.
So what can we say more constructively? Well, so I think there's one thing that characterizes both of us is the fact that we're both writers and developers, and so this gives you quite an advantage, I think, in writing for narrative games, because you know what's possible, what's hard, what doesn't make much sense, and so because I don't even imagine how can one write for games if one is not aware of, like for example, the state, no, how you the relationship with the state of the character, with what they did previously and what they did, and the fact what is easily to compute, to generate, and what's impossible, so they can sort of generate a future or things like this, and actually, so also outspoken helps in integrating this. So, but in the end, because of the limited time I had for completing writing the narrative, so I thought in the beginning that 90% of the effort would go in the narrative and 10% in the matches, which shows how little experience I have in this. And instead, it was the opposite.
Yeah.
So, so I realized that the narrative, as you perfectly know, is quite limited in scope and has very little replayability. But I mean,
But that's a choice for.
It's a choice, yeah, and also it's.
I mean, there's.
This is an independent production, self-funded, and so we decided to miss. But I think, well, it seems
also,
that some people enjoy it at least.
I don't understand them at all, but yes, I heard that. No, I have to say that on this, like one of the things, first of all, I would like to make a point about the fact that we're both, we're both developers and writers, but one interesting thing is that I think we both come, like a lot of other people that write for games, I have to say, but that we come from a culture of writing that is different. Like you come from writing novels and short tales. I come from writing comics. So we are not, let's say, it's not a bad thing to say that one can be stuck in the way you write a game, but we are trying to write them differently, not because we're cool, but simply because we have a different background. So your way of writing football drama is what I really liked. That is very novelish way of writing, completely crazy novelish writing, because that's who you are. And that makes it interesting. That's also how you convinced me to make a football game.
It was a long fight. Yeah, because Daniele wasn't convinced at all about the football theme, but then we found out I think we found our way to do it. And it's funny when I see somebody who don't know much about the game, and they think they found like a fair game between Football Manager and FIFA. I said, well, not exactly. And yeah, but
it's. I wanted to find a marker so I could write a censorship on this hand. So when I smoke, it's. And what about instead? I imagine you already talked about what drove you to make a football game.
Yes, with Muesli, we talked. They asked questions about this, and in fact, Matteo of Muesli, he was one of the many I met, which surprised me because I wouldn't have thought that he would be interested in football or things, but instead he knows everything about football, everything, and
he also knows everything about wrestling.
Yes, that's his main interest. But still, you can ask him, like, which are the teams which are in Serie B, in the second Italian league, and he knows. So I mean,
impressive.
It's crazy, and actually most of the males.
But that's the pervasiveness of football. I mean, we have amazing writers that wrote about football.
Yes.
It's something that really catches a wide audience. I still don't know why. No, I know why, because actually you made me understand why. So I get it. I still can't play it, so that's why I will hate it forever. But but that's a very interesting theme. Also, all the myths that you put into the game and that you studied and that you convinced, etc. Also, I'm sorry if I ask you something that was already asked before, but I was having a shower, so Aki was following you but didn't. And how did it all start? Like there was a prototype?
Yes. You know what? Yes. Well, actually, a lot of time, as I think in many of these games, was wasted in a sense, was doing work which I didn't use. I think almost a year. Yeah, and I was trying to do a complete football simulator. You remember all my attempts with
I remember.
And
there were all these single players that moved independently, they had an AI.
And so
when we started working on this, how long it was?
4 years ago.
2015.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, really occasionally and not really. But yes, when it was 4 years ago. I mean, the full development has been like almost 2 years now. But the thing started 4 years ago. Yes. In fact, I want to publish one of the prototypes. Because because it shows. I think it could be useful for other maybe indie game designers, because it shows the huge amount of work that goes between creating a prototype and a finished game, even a simple sort of indie game. I think I have some noise.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Oh, wait, I did something.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
I'm sorry, it's because these headphones are really hot.
And yeah, so it shows how much work goes between and how much difference to do a prototype and a finished game. In fact, our friend Laurent Victorino wrote a beautiful piece explaining this very well. Don't confuse a prototype with a game or something like that. And yeah, so it was a huge amount of work, and in fact, the match handling of the players is way simpler than it was supposed to be. But then, to make the game feel of this simpler prototype nice was a huge work, mostly done by Pino. So he really did some good work there.
I was watching actually. Initially, we were talking about graphics, etc., and in the end, I did the illustrations and Pino did the graphics. And I was watching the graphics that I tried to make for you at the beginning, and they were horrible compared to what Pino did. What Pino did is amazing. I was watching them and was thinking, oh, thank God that Pino arrived.
Well, but now you're looking at your first attempt at his last result. But of course, he did too many things in between. So that's a bit unfair, I must say. But still, he did a really amazing, at least according to us who are the makers of the job, of the game. But a really objective judgment.
But so I'm just gonna ask questions to you. Don't you have questions for the guy that drew your game?
Yes, I have one which was asked by Muesli, and I gave a sort of
confused answer.
Yeah, I mean, I was selling them something I didn't actually have. So some snake oil. But anyway, so they asked me what were the references for the drawings of the characters and the football cards, like in style, in art. And
like not who like the characters, but the actual style. That's an interesting question, and I have to say that obviously there's this basic influence of comics that pervades everything I do.
Oh, but that's what I told them.
Yes, but also in somehow there's for the drawings of the characters, not the cards. For the drawing of the characters, there's a touch of impressionism almost. That calm smoothness of impressionism, even if the style is different, the colors are different, but there's something that I was feeling while I was drawing. And I think the difference also in style is evident between the characters that appears in the dialogues and the cards, because for the cards I used almost a completely different style, which was more edgy, more sketchy. I used a brush that had some strong angles because I wanted them to both feel rough, like more like a cartoon. Like let's say the difference is that the dialogue parts are comics, the cards are cartoons. So that was one part of the process, and then I always try new things. So we had a lot of also process on that, if you remember. Like the initial characters, I was in a vector period, so I drew them in vector art, and luckily then I changed my mind because I prefer them much more like they are now.
Yes,
but that was a that was about. I think maybe we even talked for a while if it could be pixel art.
Yes, in the very beginning. Yes.
Because we worked, you remember, on People in Love, the first game that we tried to make together. I like that game. I mean, it didn't work. We never brought it on as we should have, but the concept, the idea, even the art behind it was working. It was very interesting.
Yes, the idea had some depth, but I was so unskilled on all the other dimensions that somehow. But the conceptual work of the research and the literature inspiring that is very interesting. And I remember the book when the book is called The Happy City, which is about this experimental sort of socialist urban design in South America, which are very. Very beautiful and interesting. And well, one thing I wanted to, I think, also several reviewers noticed is how every card is not just is neither a formal sketch of what it represents, nor a single character, but it's like it's a micro story. And so this is like. Even like you now are promoting a Football Drama release with a beautiful pixel art, and there too you're always telling, even with just 4 scenes, but with the cards it's a single image, and you're still trying to do some little storytelling. Can you tell us something about that?
Yes, that's. But that's first of all, that's kind of that's because I was a comic artist, and most of all, in the case of the cards, it's because I was a satirical cartoonist. in the past. So that's a mix of these things. The comic art, I think that especially if you use it to indie comics, then you start when you make an illustration, for example, instead of making just a character or something, you usually try to draw a scene because you use two panels, you use also to consider the camera and how that image is going to be cut. So there's always some part of narrative in drawing from a comic perspective. Being a satirical cartoonist adds another layer to the narrative in a way, because cartoons are based on you have one panel, and that panel usually has to tell a whole story. Obviously, there's also comic strips, and those are cartoons too, and there are 3 or 4 panels. But a lot of the history of cartoons is single panel. So that's what I brought into the cards. And also, I was very stimulated by you, because I had no idea what I was talking about. And you let me free. I just asked you, okay, what does this mean? Like, what the hell is tiki-taka? Things like that. And you explained them to me, but you didn't tell me what to represent. I just had to make the concept arrive somehow. And so I was free to tell these little stories, and that was the fun of me, because I think that when you're drawing, whatever you're doing, even when you're coding, you have to find what gives you passion, what gives you fun, etc. So the fun in the cards for me was that, telling a small story and possibly teasing the concept of football altogether.
Yes, but actually you don't, well, probably you do realize, but somehow you don't realize that the satirical take is very much present in football, and it's the beautiful side of it. And like all the jokes that the supporters do on the teams, somehow it becomes bad stuff. But the good ones are never the racist one or too aggressive ones. The good ones are the really funny ones, and there are so many of them. And this somehow, it's the spirit of football, as I quoted already Galeano, but he says, if I have to explain to a kid what is happiness, I just throw him a ball. And I think this is a really beautiful writer explanation of what makes it interesting. And there's always the two sides in football, the dark side and this really light. So football is special in a way because you can play it. I have in YouTube. When you're with kids, it's you can make a ball with a piece of paper, and you're in a cramped room, but still you can have great fun. Just kicking the ball of paper around, and
that also depends on your friends when you're a kid. Also, like when we were in a room, we just kicked each other, but.
You see, football maybe was a better alternative in that sense.
Yeah.
No? It's a way of having war without violence. Well, this was surprisingly nice with my arch enemy. So and a good friend. So, but our time is expired, and we have another guest coming in. So
who's gonna come in?
Who's the next one?
The next one will be Costa.
Oh, Constantinos.
Oh, Consta.
Yes.
Let's make a party. Why are you seeing all of us separately? Shouldn't be this a cacophonic disaster.
Well, maybe we can try. I'll try. So be ready for.
I don't want to ruin your plot.
No. It's just that it's working. So we are streaming on 4 channels, and I'm managing to keep the attention. This was all Pino's setup. He did a sort of miracle, and with incoming calls, he's like this incredible, complicated setup. And it seems to be working. So if we can make a multi-call and stream it, we'll.
Awesome.
We'll do it. Yeah.
I will even put myself more comfortable.
Okay, so we'll have
Nice for the occasion, at least.
So the call will be like in 2-3 minutes, so you can rest a bit.
Okay. So yeah, bye in 2-3 minutes.
Tack så mycket.
Ciao.
This is nice. So let me take a little break. I'll be back soon. Okay, here we are.
Oh,
Great. Okay, let me make it bigger so you can see the beauties of Konstantinos Galliano, the new trainer of Colchester Assembled.
Yes.
And so, dear Rocco,
Yes.
how did you end up becoming the manager of this Colchester Assembled team?
Well, I heard wonderful things about Monica, and I really had to see. You see, and that and my deep passion for football, apparently. Two things mostly.
Okay, but so will you lead your team with imagination or with let's say authority?
I think it will be a combination of both.
No, the game does not allow you.
No, I know I cannot do that. I'll focus on chaos and see what happens.
Okay.
And maybe
Well,
try out-
are we saying that dictators don't have imagination?
Yes, who said that? This is very wrong. I'm very imaginative.
I agree. I mean, they do. It's bad imagination, but
Definitely. But in football, it might work. It might just work.
So I want to just say to the two listeners that Konstantinos is the guy who gave me most feedback on the game, and and of course I hated him a lot for all of that, as all developers
I can
do.
confirm that. He
And-
told me then that bastard. No,
and so following his feedback, we made several changes, among which the fact that you're not mandatory to do like the coach drama part after every match. We created more variations in the story. It wasn't his suggestion directly, but it made me think about the fact you don't ever talk directly with the characters. Instead, now at the first half, you have a little chat with the captain of your team, and which is a nice change. It suggests you how to use cards, and which opens some things, and so on. Some things we couldn't do because they would have required to open more narrative branching. In particular, in the second half of the championship, this is something already some of the reviewers complained about. So if in the game you never do take risky choices, the narrative somehow flattens down. But that's also
live.
so that's my answer. Of course, it's not a really very good answer, but that's what happens in the game. So if you don't risk anything, if you don't buy strange stuff, you don't have the means to work on the corruption cases. So the narrative somehow flats down. But of course, if we were to, in my original design, there were many other characters, like there was this doctor playing with the medicines and stimulants and so on, which was a very interesting character inspired by Dr. Strangelove. And in fact, Daniela had shown him some part of the narrative, but that is completely missing. But at a certain point, a few months ago, I realized that we would have taken like another year of development, and we would probably already be closed and doing something, working at the post office or something. So
that would have been a bad idea then.
Can you raise your volume a bit, Konstantinos?
Can I? Maybe I can bring it closer to me. Is that better? That's
a little, but it makes you more mysterious. So I think
that's
it's
the point.
okay.
I can also do my deep voice. I can talk like, very mysteriously and shit.
Let's all do that.
Yes. Yes, and we'll lose all two watchers.
We already lost them, don't worry.
Oh, shit.
Oh, can I remove my shirt finally?
Well, then we gain followers.
Indeed.
You never
Then
know.
do something. Do the voice and the shirt.
Okay, I'm coming back in a moment.
Oh, Jesus. So how's life?
Life is nice. It's interesting. It's filled with diapers and milk and baby stuff, which is lovely but also slightly exhausting.
Well, also releasing video games, I can grant you, is quite exhausting,
Yes, I noticed that too.
but not as exhausting.
Exactly. Let's give to Const what is of Const.
Yes, yes.
Wisely. Can I get my questions now, please? Since both of you are there. They don't make much sense, but I've actually written them down. See, they're here. They're here.
Wait,
So
it's like reading the Book of Changes, the I Ching.
Yes, the first question, so it's a composite question. The two parts of it are not directly connected, but they sort of are. So part one is, which Socrates is the best? I have the correct answer, of course, but yeah, you can answer too. And then how do we boil down football as a risk versus control choice? Is everything, that was very interesting to me, is everything always, when it comes to football, a choice between risk and control? So this is the first question, please.
Cool.
So Socrates, which is the best? Of course, the best one is the Monty Python one. So
Good.
I give this answer one banana.
Yes.
Deserved.
And yeah, in fact, this is the Monty Python approach to football. In that football game with the philosophers.
Yes, it was brilliant and wise, and we won.
And yeah, of course, and that's football drama.
Yes. This is
okay. So it's just a clone.
Yes, it's a disgusting clown. It's a disgusting clown.
I hate clones.
And for the second sneaky question, well, it came. The thing comes from this thing of pressure in football, but of course Daniele is completely out because he has no idea what it means. But so as you know, in football matches are long matches. So even if you have a very powerful team, there will be a moment where they're too tired to keep control and pressure, and that's usually when the underdog strikes. And so this kind of wave, these two waves, one is bigger and one is thinner, and they sort of alternate. So this is, and so I wanted to have this, which is a complex mathematical model, combined with the dimensions and so on. But this is my style of designing. I want a user interface that is incredibly simple. So that's why just the two buttons, and so you can play on mobile with one finger, like, and also it represents the fact that I want to do small games, like so games for people who don't pass their life playing video games. Okay, and so all these things go together to try to justify this ridiculous oversimplification.
Which was also very elegant too, though, wasn't it?
In fact, the only negative review, of course, was from an Italian guy, and it basically comes down to, okay, but this is not Football Manager, so it's what can you answer to that?
Sort of the point, I imagine. So the question is, the other question, sorry, Daniele, because this really ties in with that. Was football drama really designed for people like, me and Daniele and probably you, who are really not that much into football, but sort of more interested in everything that's happening around it, something simple, manageable, yet also, fun in a less athletic way, let's say? Was that like the focus of the design? People like us, like.
Well, so my ideal is, so in a sense, I think that if football drama sells really very little, I think that reflects the fact, some defect in the game design. So for me, the fact that a game, I think Daniele doesn't agree with this. I think we had many discussions
neither.
about this.
I don't agree either, to be honest.
But yeah, I think that if in your game you don't build somehow you don't consider the audience and you don't move towards the audience. You try to move towards the audience. I think that's a big mistake of game design. So so I don't know if this. So it wasn't. So one of my ideas is I want it to be to be possible at least that it can reach a wide audience. So this is so so this is also comes the usability and so on and stands also because of the work I did before on applications and applied games. So inclusiveness and so and also I don't think that the core ideas in game design and the nice parts of games are there because games are hard. This is really something that disturbs me, this idea that the games have to be hard somehow to be effective, or that games are somehow intrinsically linked to solving puzzles. And I think this is a really reductive idea, which brings to all sorts of consequences and mistakes. And so my approach is really far from that. So I don't know. This is the general idea. I didn't have a specific audience in mind. The focus is more on expressing the story. That's
Right.
the focus.
Right, got it.
Can I speak? I have to express all my disagreement with.
Time is over. Time is over.
I'm sorry, I don't. But, no, I disagree enormously with the idea that if a game doesn't sell, it means that there's a flaw and that you didn't reach the audience. Because while on one side, I think that games like novels, like movies, like comics, they need to reach an audience because they're media that need to speak with something. They're called media because of that. And but I think that if you really have something to tell, you always have your audience. You can say, oh, what I was telling was too advanced or too complex or whatever, and that's why I have no audience. Because we have such a wide variety as a humanity that there is an audience for you. The problem is if you really have something to tell, which I think this game has, but also if the audience can find you. So in games right now, if something, you can't judge something from sales, because sometimes there's magnificent games out there that just haven't been discovered, not because they weren't able to touch the audience. They were never even be able to be seen by this audience. Done.
No, but actually, I agree with that. I mean, what I was focusing on is on the effort of the designer to try to reach the audience you're referring to. Of course, there may be a million external factors that make it so that, like, you go under a bus, and or when your games comes out the same day that Apple Arcade is coming out, like random example. So in this case, nobody will see your game nor play it.
Who cares about Apple? Oh my God, did I say this live?
Okay, I think Daniele is wiser on that point. I'll just say that. Now, he's right.
Nah.
No, I mean, and the truth is that we do know that excellent stuff exists, and there's excellent stuff that never really caught a wider audience and never even managed to reach the audience that would have enjoyed it. And it's something that we've seen like across all sorts of media. So yeah, there might always be a flaw or something that's considered a flaw by many, but not necessarily bad design or a bad idea per se. So,
well, but you see, but you're speaking in theory, but in the sense, there are examples of this, but I think that if you look at the practice of game designers, or so-called game designers, this effort towards the audience is not something I see so much done when you're doing meaningful games. So
True.
yeah, that's my point. Okay.
That's true. That's true, though. That we have to give to you. We have to give you a
Also,
point.
I have to say that this can't also be used as an excuse when you actually do a bad game. I mean, okay, there's one needs the right balance.
Yeah, I think sometimes you have to admit you just did a bad game. In saying, whining, oh, nobody saw it. Maybe they saw it, didn't like it. Some people already we have negative reviews, so for
But
football.
let's say this immediately, all together. Let's hope that for the next game we will do something decent.
Yes, I will sacrifice something and make sure this happens. Don't worry.
Well, you know, you Greek, you use it to throw kids from hills to...
Yes, that was really fun.
That would help.
That was only in Sparta, though, I think. But we can really, we can like popularize it across the country.
Well, actually, the Romans did it too. So anyway.
Yeah, see, it's fun. Everyone loves that. It goes without saying.
And Daniele is from Rome, of course.
Yes.
That's why I have a wonderful kid that is 19, but I had to find him when he was 10, because otherwise...
This was such a wise move. I mean, it's...
Yelena knew.
Careful, Konstantinos. You're recorded. Careful, Konstantinos.
Wait for him to grow up first.
Police is coming.
Yeah, actually, no. It's admittedly way better than I expected it to. So that's something. That is really something. Because I had a really horrific thing in mind. Probably what Daniela had in mind. It's not that bad, really. Let's admit that. So can I have another question?
Let's move on. I
know that you will keep this in your mind now, but if you want to talk about something else, okay. It won't help.
Sure. So, my question is not a serious one now, but it came from Dan Griliopoulos' comment. So, could we have some sort of, weird DLC? Is there any plan for that, provided the game does well? Something where you can have more Pasolini in it, or maybe have Cantona or some sort of iconic football-related persona, sort of reshape the game around it? Would that be some sort of consideration for a DLC or expansion or a sequel or something like that?
Oh.
I mean, I think it sells the millions.
No. In a sense, we worked for almost 4 years on this game, and I think it's, in the sense, we want to do patches, and we know there are things to be improved. We want to have more translations, but evolving it from a narrative point of view, I'm not sure. If one thing is done, it's sort of done, and if this is what we were asking, I don't know, Daniele. What do you think about that?
Not even of my dead body. How is the right expression? No, I wouldn't be against it, I have to say. To be honest, surprisingly, if you, Pietro, would want to do something like a DLC, etc., I would be up for it, but I would be more up for it for something different. Also, I hope not to see you ever again after today. So
that's reciprocal.
But also, we have to say that Pietro already is already on another game almost.
And Daniele is into it.
Football Drama 2 confirmed, and we can move on. Good. Excellent. That's good news.
But we can tell you.
I believe, actually, I always wondered. I don't really know if, when you finish a thing, it's good to finish it and throw it from a hill, like kids. And so I wonder if when people do DLCs, Yelena is looking at me with thunder. And so I was wondering if, big companies, they do DLC because they have people to whip and tell them, just do me a DLC. But in this, I always wonder if there are some people that like to continue working on a game, or if it's always suffering. Because usually when you finish something, you want to move on to something else because of a question of creativity, of blowing up the steam, etc. So please answer me.
I would say that it depends. I mean, if you really enjoyed something and it hasn't taken that much time, or if you had the opportunity to, tackle it from a different point of view and a different angle without changing much, that might be interesting. But I'm thinking of something, like a text game, something, like choose your own adventure thing, where you could suddenly, come up with a DLC in 3 months that would be the point of view of the evil guy or so that might be interesting. I think that people might enjoy actually doing that.
Well, actually, yeah. Sorry, but just one thing is unfortunately, technically, is perfectly feasible because football drama has been really modular in the building, and also thanks to Outspoken, and also mostly because we had very limited means to test it. We didn't have a testing department, so we had to build in the game ways to jump around, jump the plot, jump from one thing to the other, and you can it's like Lego. You can like the thing about the coach drama thing that you asked about, not to have it every week. That took me 10 minutes. I mean, because it's really like composing the bricks and all the variables go. So we can shuffle all the thing and add more dialogues and so on. So technically, it's quite feasible because usually it's not in games. So games are really the problem with games with respect to other kinds of applications, that you have all these dimensions moving in synchron. So changing everything means changing a lot of stuff. But the way football drama is built in this fractionary units, it would be possible. But I really don't. It's the wrong moment. I'm so tired now that even thinking about this, it almost kills me.
Yes, it makes sense. Yeah, you're allowed to take a week off or something.
I have to say, on this theme, it's interesting what you were saying, Const, that like when you think of a DLC for games, you usually think of something that uses the same mechanics to add to those mechanics. So it's not really a different perspective. Your example was of a text game, so it's purely narrative based.
Yes.
And it's true that even I'm thinking now, when you write books or when you write comics or whatever, when you finish something, you still have sometimes an interest to write something more about it, because in that case it's a complete change of perspective. It's like, let me flip this and analyze it differently. But in games, it's rare that you are able to flip the perspective with a DLC, because in this case, okay, it's modular. Football drama is modular, but usually if you want to really change perspective, either you tell a different story or you have to remake the game.
Yes, that is a very fair point. I mean, it's closer to reality.
But who is destroying the house?
What's your place being destroyed?
It's my have some sound. But okay, I think we did. So you asked our 3 questions.
Yes, I asked my questions 3. I did that.
Okay, well that was very nice, and your look is amazing. It's really amazing.
Yes, I applaud again.
I am the cosplayer.
You hands down win.
Did you say the cosplayer?
No, the const. It was obviously that.
I applaud again. We're reaching such high levels here.
You do the same jokes. You do the same jokes.
Ancient tobacco, which is totally unsmokable, and you were smoking here before. But oh well.
It happens.
So health choices happen to all of us.
Okay, guys. So thank you so much for this conversation. It was wonderful. And so, yeah, let's talk soon again.
Yes, absolutely. Best of luck.
Love you.
Bye-bye. You too.
Ciao.
Bye, guys.
So, okay, again, I'll take a little break. Back to streaming. Hi. So we're live, and I'm hi. So
how are you?
I'm well. I'm alive more or less, so it's already a lot. And sorry, there's Daniele disturbing us with messages. And
For the many people that don't know me, I'm Giuseppe Mancini from Yonder.
Yonder. And Yonder has done some really beautiful games, and they become well known starting last year, more well known with a wonderful game also on Switch, which was a hit. And maybe you can say a couple of words about it.
Yes. Actually, they are two games. One is Red Rope on Steam. We released it 2 years ago, and is a game about a rope, a red rope, of course, and a multiplayer game for 2 people. And the second one is like a funny game, crazy game named Circle of Sumo, and it's a party game. And the last one is on Switch and Red Rope on Steam. And now we are changing the things and make Red Rope on Switch and Circle of Sumo on Steam. And we are working on another game that named Hell is Others, and another multiplayer games, because we are not tired of multiplayer games, and I don't know when it will be released. It's a big thing. Just this.
Well, yes. So these games are very strong on the mechanics, because of course that's very important in party games. And but we are talking here together also because you always have do a lot of narrative and background research, and there are lots of games rich of references, and this way you gain depth and you have something to say, even like in a game that may look very silly like Circle of Sumo, but still, if one looks at the character design, there's something there, and so that's why I can understand your process and game design.
Yes, we like to fill our game with many things that no one will notice. It's our mark. And for example, Red Rope is full of symbols, and the narrative is in the background. There are no many words in the game, but if you pay attention to the environment, you will notice that there are many things that speak even without words. And this is what we do, making the things speaks.
Well, actually, yes. Yes, go on.
And Circle Sumo is it's a silly game, but behind the form, it's a particular game because it's a game about sumo actually, but the real main character of the game is the circle. Everywhere there are circles, and the game is about circles and the way they bounce, the way they push each other, and it's a game. We tried to find it representation, so we found sumo, the sumo sport, but in our idea there was only circles. There were only circles, and this is the leitmotif of the games. And the third one is a game about it's the opposite of Red Rope. Red Rope is a game about bonds, about union, and the last game, Hell is Others, is the opposite. Is a game about war, about hate, and so we like to work on games that have these social topics, and we try to make our best.
Well, but many of these things are actually my concerns. Yeah, but you made a game with with a sport and a meaningful research behind it, and this is exactly what I was doing with different means. But also in football drama, even though it's a narrative game, there's a huge ton of references to things that are sort of in the background, and then that only few may notice, or they may you notice in your unconscious. And I feel I crammed the game with this kind of that's also my way of writing and stories,
Yeah.
so it's pushing lots of stuff together. I like also the writing that is not too elegant, it's also discontinuous, and I think I like games because when I was writing short stories I was using already this style in writing, and in games this can be comes out, it can look natural while can looks like something worked to build it like this, but that's my natural way of doing it. So somehow I sell a defect as a quality, and yeah, and also one interesting thing you said, that a game can be narrative without words, and
Yeah.
that's something I think because now there is this wave of narrative games which are not boring, and they're innovating the genre, and which inspired me so much, like I don't know, Sunday Sea or 80 Days or Reigns, all these games that have a strong capacity of telling interesting stories, but have these simple mechanics, and that somehow bring you along, and so these are like the main inspiration for football drama, of
Yes,
course.
I noticed.
Man,
I mean, I like even the opposite that of what I do, because I'm, for example, in football drama, I loved more than other, especially how you tell the story, and the characters. Sometimes maybe I almost don't care the mechanics when there are so beautiful characters and so beautiful and yes, I like, for example, and I love the possibility of the games to tell stories with the interaction of the gamers in a different way. You did this because you tell a story about football like no one others do. So yes, but because maybe in I mean, my way to make game design is different because I have I don't want to be a writer, because in the past I would like to be a writer, but I had like a crisis. So I remember that that like 10 years ago I decided to stop with writing, and I prefer to speak in another way, just that. But of course, if someone could be a good writer, he has to be a writer, and you have to tell stories like you. I mean,
well, but still, I mean, yeah, but this thing that you were trying, I mean, I think. So, what does it mean to be a writer? Writer does not necessarily mean express yourself through the medium of novels. So probably you are a writer in the sense, even so, if you're telling stories in any way, you're telling the story. You're a storyteller.
yeah, storyteller maybe. Yes, yeah. Yes. And I would like to make you some question about your game, because I love especially one thing that when I try to put myself inside the body of a coach, and I think that in that case you feel like you feel this sense of powerlessness, but in the same time you feel like you are decisive. You are important, and your game, in my opinion, managed to to find this mix. You feel in a strange way, because maybe you really don't know what are you doing, but you can in some way decide, and when something happens, you are very proud of it. In a occult way. And I mean, this is what the coach maybe feels, the coaches. And my question is, how do you find this balance, this mix between something clear and something occult? You decide it, or
Yeah, so this is well, I'm very happy that you felt it, because this is exactly, precisely what I wanted to express.
yeah, I know it.
But I had no idea. I think with games, you see, with games, the process, as you know very well, the process is so complex. There are so many dimensions, and you have to somehow, if you're indie like us, I mean, you have to finish. You have a short time, and that you don't really know where you're going. At least in my case, for sure, I didn't know where I was going. At least at a certain point, I knew that if I wanted to have a complete control of the process, it would have taken me enormous amount of time. So I just said, well, let's hope. This is something we discussed also with the previous guys.
It's a
I just said, let's hope that it works out. I was in angst for a few days. I mean, it wasn't working out, would not work out. But I said, let's just focus on expressing these two aspects through the means that I have now, even if they're very limited, because it's a game, it's a very limited game in every aspect. But as long as the feeling comes out, that's all I wanted. And but it seems that this thing, there are many things that are limited or don't work very well in the game, but this mixture of very indirect control, but it's not control, it's influence, attempt of influencing things, somehow works well with this simple mechanics of the match, which in fact the match looks simple, but the match, differently from the narrative, the match has a very complex and quite refined mathematical model behind it.
Yeah,
To
I guess so.
And so it's one of those things. So I had hope in the beginning to spend little time on the match and most on the narrative, but in fact, creating a match that gives you a good feeling is very, very hard. And so that actually most of the time was spent there.
Yes, yes. I think that sometimes it's good to leave the game go by his own, you know.
So
And
you had this experience too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Because what this kind of experience?
Yes. I mean, I was asking you. You too had this experience. I just have to let it go, and we'll
Yes.
see. Huh.
Yes. Because especially when you work to something that is quite new, you know, it's difficult to understand what's happened. And you cannot know what the gamers will think about it. So you have to be faithful. You have to believe that that concept could be good. And it's yes, there are only feelings. Yes, you can of course let other people test your game, but then it's not enough. So you have sometimes to, if you have a good concept and you believe that it's yes, new and powerful, there's no rules. You have to believe in it. And so, but it's nice because sometimes the game itself surprise you. And I discovered some mechanics in a Red Rope, for example, that I never played. So sometimes it's good. It's like when me and my girlfriend who works in Yonder as well. Sometimes we talk about our games like children, you know. And we try to think about them like I don't know, they are growing up, they are meeting people now, and maybe someone is smarter than other, for example.
Well, I hear here the fantasy of Zakia.
Yes.
That's powerful. And but actually, in my case today, I'm throwing the kid out of the house. I mean, it's time.
Yes. I apologize, but because sometimes I don't heard very well.
Okay.
You see me like this?
No, your camera is not working somehow on the stream, so I'm.
Okay. And your camera as well.
So I
Who is the?
I turn off the camera, and I'll turn it on again. Let's see if it works. Yes. Somehow,
Okay.
not really. No, not really. We can do without maybe. Can you try to turn it on and off? Because now mine is working somehow.
No, I mean, it's okay. I will try. Here? No.
No. Okay. Okay. We had. Okay.
Let's try.
Yes.
It's okay. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
And yeah, do you have any other questions?
Yes.
Yeah. I I just played the game not so much, so I was into the beginning. It was a little weird, and it was a surprise because it's a football game that don't talk about football, and this is awesome because we are in Italy and football is a religion to us. But you choose to make a noir, basically. What I feel when I play it, I play a noir. It reminds me a famous movie of an Italian director, Sorrentino. First film, Uomo in Più. A soccer story, but it's not. The story of someone else. And so even the mechanic about that, yeah, it's limited. You have two choices and you have cards, and sometimes you don't really know, but it's okay because you don't feel like this is your purpose. It's not the feeling of win the game or lose the game or just playing football. It's all about the story.
Well, but actually, you know, some people like you get it, but some people don't get it, and they're very angry that it's not Football Manager, but like
it's very clear about you talk with a cat, so I mean you can.
Well, actually, the main, I think it's the main Italian video game site and reviewers actually complain exactly about that, but it's not important anyway.
Yeah, it's a risk because you know we are in Italy, so soccer is something in our DNA, something important in our country. The choose to make this is very brave, and it's really interesting because it's another way to see that exit from the classic structure of the genre, the manager, the football game, the FIFA game, and we need this kind of thing. We really need it because we need to push the boundaries to watch what's not in the center of something that we know. We need to push forward our narrative, our writing, even how we mix something like football that is, you know, it's like religion, is untouchable.
Yes.
But yes,
even in this way, it's a sacred thing.
Yeah.
Because the story, in my opinion, are more important than the events. Because in one day we will tell only stories, and the event disappeared.
well, so two things that one of your remarks. This thing of seeing football as a religion is something so important. It's not typically Italian. It's in many countries it's like this, and
in Spain and
yeah, England and Germany Germany and all South America, even more probably. But so in fact, one of the inspirations for building the game was Roland Barthes. He's an anthropologist, and Giuseppe will know him very well. And so he found sports in general. In fact, sumo too, if you think about it, they are a way of going to war without going to war. Okay, and so it's something very important for us because I think there's a misunderstanding of football in this way, and the worst misunderstanding of it is exchanging, like you have a metaphor in front of you and you exchange the metaphor for reality. And this is like the stupid supporters who like suddenly turn violent. They completely misunderstood that it's a ritual to somehow free yourself from the idea of violence. This is why, one of the reasons why anthropologists think sport is so important for us. But sometimes this gets mistaken. But that's not the main role of football in our society. The main role of football in our society is for this bizarre dispelling of war. And so I think that's a very interesting point. And so this is why in football drama there's so many reference to, even in the dialogues you may have noticed that he's talking, I am the king or the leader of the tribe, and I am powerless. No, the king is like is the least powerful person, the person who does nothing, and where all power goes somehow. That's a typical. So I put these things into the dialogues like it's as if they were just a confusion, like strange talk. Some of the reviews, this is strange talk, but they're actually they're all references, and if you know, you can pick them out. And I hope somebody will get something from them.
Yeah. Yes, it's very interesting because I mean, football now is maybe the most important show in the world. So it remember the ancient theater, you know, and
these words you're saying are exactly the words of Pasolini. He said exactly the same sentence. Football is today's form of theater. And I was reading him last week about at the conference, and so
I have other question about they are two questions actually. I'm not so a little bit prosaic, but I want to know if you there are there some things that you could not put in the game in the end, and something that you would like to put in the game but you could not.
Yes, definitely. The main thing is that, and in fact some reviewers have complained about this, is the fact that if you don't take risks, or if you don't take certain risks in the story, nothing actually happens. Not much actually happens in the game. And this is entirely due to lack of time and money. And I've written the whole story, and with this doctor, and with the use of drugs, and he was like a strange love. He was a strange love in the game, and then there was a much more interesting story with Monica and so on. And but this is a self-funded indie game, and so we had to cut the branches to the core of the game. And still, if I don't know if you manage to get into the corruption case, but if you get in the middle of that, the game gets much more interesting. But it's not so easy.
Yeah, I know about it. Yes, don't spoil it.
Okay.
I'm not there yet.
Okay.
Yes. No, but yes.
Don't get fired. Don't get fired, because you see, this is a specific thing. If you get fired in the timeline, so this is a bizarre thing about the fact that you have a championship, a story and a championship. So the two timelines can suddenly cut each other, you know? And so this makes it a very bizarre narrative game, because you can either die because of life choices, or simply because you get fired because you're losing the matches, which has nothing to do with, or little to do with, your life choices. So it makes it for really frustrating. It's sort of it's a game with a sort of a permadeath.
Yes. Nice. Yes, and is there the permadeath? So,
Sorry?
is there the permadeath like you wanted to put it in the game? Is
So in fact, it's not a quality; it's a bit of a defect, in the sense that, yeah, because then because when you replay the narrative, at least the beginning of the narrative will be almost the same. One thing that can change in every replay is the karma chaos balance, which changes the cards, the matches, and the way you play. So that can change in the replayability, but the narrative part, no, because of course that think of it, it's a game in 8 languages. Just in the end, we had to add two dialogues. It was a huge effort. So that would lead to some kind of investment, which for us is impossible. So
no, yes, of course, it would be impossible. Yeah, maybe the next one. Football drama 2. Do you think the next project? Are you thinking
yes,
about?
yeah, we're already working on the next project. Still with sports, it's storytelling, but it's not football drama too. It's football drama looks at the past, and the next project we want to look a bit more in the present and the future. And football drama is about football as it was, which was a world only of men and with a certain societal structure. And today's world, fortunately, somehow is different, and we want to talk. We want to talk about that. So it will be about women, sports women, and yeah, completely different.
I really love this your leitmotif about sports, and I would like to. I look forward to play the next game. I mean, because sports games usually are only about sports and the mechanics of the sports.
Yeah, it's only about play the sports,
Yeah,
not
just-
about what it means for
Yeah.
people and society.
About the things, not about the metaphor. You know.
I mean, why do people play sports? I mean, is it because of the mechanics? No. So
Yeah, get in the flow, because you need that flow. When I was a child, I used to play football, and it was the only chance that I had to be in the flow, like in a river, like in a ritual. You know, you forget all yourself, and you are inside something that is choral, like something that you can share with other people, and it's quite interesting. It's quite mystical if you do with the right intention, and I really miss that feeling. That feels.
Yeah, so you really miss it. So you see, you don't know exactly what it means, but it gives meaning. It's a meaningful thing. So that's interesting. And I like to try to do games that sort of can speak about to as many people as possible. Of course, then I betray this idea by doing games which are somehow not standard. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, this was
Well,
really nice talking to you, and but I think we are already way beyond our time. Was wonderful, and thank you for the call.
Okay, so see you in these days.
Yeah, thank you so much for talking. It was so nice.
Thank you and congratulations. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. So cool. Okay, I'll take another little break. gentlemen, we are live again, and here we have actually half of our wonderful musician. Now we see the 3/4, almost the whole face, and it's Ascari, Marta Ascari. She's a composer, musician, and she not only does her own music, but she works as a composer and performer of music for video games. Hi, Marta.
Hi everybody.
And so great to see you. And so Marta, you know, in football drama, it's a game. It's a small game and has many limitations. We know, but we tried to somehow merge all the dimensions, so the design, the story, and the music with a common theme. And in fact, you did a lot of research and attempts, and you did samples by yourself, some digital work, and then you also did studio recordings, and you work with other artists in trying to express the feeling of the game, and a lot of work there. Can you tell us something about that?
Yes, I based my research on a character study. We talked so much about various characters of the game in order to find their soul. Each character has a precise, let's say, soul and its own word. And what I tried to do, like in opera, was to design a music environment for each main character of the game. And yes, the interesting challenge was then to make all these, let's say, music environment match together, because before the game starts, you don't know how will, let's say, the player play the game. So in which order will they appear? And that was a very interesting challenge.
Yes, and this is what, in fact, what you're saying here. It's true for all the dimensions. Like also for writing the text of the stories. I wrote the text of the stories before, and I think there's not a single dialogue or snippet of writing that I could use in the game. I had to rewrite the whole thing. Of course, that gives you ideas and things, but then this is why, and in fact, a bit like operas, why making games is so complex, because all the dimensions somehow they are born separately, then they have to go together, and so they have to die and be born again to somehow mix yeah. So yeah, I can see how that was part of your work. And for the music style, what were your inspirations and the sources or
what really impressed my imagination at first, and from the very first moment when you described me the story, what was the plot, and so on, I had in my mind this image of like a, let's say, a movie from the 70s, something very noir, somehow very so I thought that jazz music was the good environment to set it somehow. And yes, and also because it's a game about football, but not a usual one, not the football we are used to. So it's kind of behind the scene of football. And so my imagination started to work on this behind the curtain, and this jazz noir lounge key. I think it describes somehow in a good way the word of the game.
Great. And so, in fact, this also led you to. So, first of all, the music in the game is mostly studio recorded, so high quality studio recorded. And so, I can tell the listeners that you can buy the soundtrack as a DLC of the game. It's like the game is it's all really cheap. You can also buy the bundle, the two things together. And so in doing this research in jazz and the studio recording, you had to, you at certain point, so you involved also other musicians.
Yes. At first, a trumpet player, a great trumpet player, is called Gianluca Cucco. He is only 20. He's from maybe now.
Hi, Gianluca.
Ciao, Gianluca. And yes, his touch was very important because it's, let's say, 50% of the sound of football drama is Gianluca's trumpet.
Well, let's not exaggerate. Otherwise, Gianluca will.
No, let's say.
I'd say 5%.
But it fit very well my imagination. The imagination we were talking before, and because trumpet is, first of all, it's the very first time for me that I write in this way for this kind of instrument. I was not used to. I mean, I did it at school like an exercise, but I've never thought a trumpet could be in my emotional strings. I was wrong because I think that it's a very, very human instrument. It's close to the human voice, but it's also kind of ethereal and detached, more ethereal, more detached than human voice. So it was the kind of middle voice we needed to describe a world that is part human and part a story, a game. So yes, and other musicians. Vincenzo Matozza, drummer player in many tracks, and also Elisa Garbo, guitar player, and Enrico Dolcetto, bass player in the very last song, which is a song that you, Pietro, you wrote the lyrics, and I also sang it. So the last song is the only one with lyrics and with a human voice singing.
Yeah. That's a little gem.
Sweetest part.
Yeah, well, yeah. In fact, I want to thank you because for me, writing the text of a song was one of really the best writing experiences I ever had. It was fantastic. It was really like something like a dream coming true because you're so free when you're writing a song and somehow the whole story we won't do spoilers, but somehow the whole story comes together in the final song, and so to research text and find ways that you could change it when singing, and also writing while singing, which was very interesting.
You sang your own version, do you remember?
Yes. I'm very ashamed, but for if you want to write the song, it's necessary. In a sense, if you don't sing it, it will be very hard to make sense of the words. And the way you sang it, I think it's probably the best reason to buy football drama if you to hear the song in the end. That's why we put it in the very end. So you have to play a lot before that, so that. But you can cheat and buy the soundtrack, and then you.
Of course.
You can hear the song, and yeah. So Marta. Yes.
Yes. As we were saying. There are many things that are going together in this game. There are feelings which are, of course, expressed in the last song, but not only in the last song.
Yeah.
They are you can find traces of them during the path, but there is also mystery, and there is also a feeling that is connected to fear and anxiety, because yes, there is also a very big dark side in this
Yes.
game.
Yes, the themes and the story, of course, are we hope at least they seem. We try to make them really very much aligned, and sometimes even align like the tempo of like the introduction with the tempo of the music, and things like this. Now, I would just say to people who's watching that football drama is a little game, and the soundtrack is a little soundtrack. But so we try to have a lot of quality, but don't expect like it's not like a 4 hour opera. But I mean, it's also the price is for both the game and the soundtrack is relatively low. But we did try to put some quality there. So I'm aware that there are many limitations in this game, and but for sure not in the soundtrack. More in the story. More in the story, and well, you see also not all the games have an original soundtrack done with the recording jazz musicians. So I think this dimension is quite good in this game. So just one last thing. So Marta, you as a musician, so you are available also for composing music for other video games. Tell us something about that, or you're working on other video games?
Yes, yes. The nice thing is that football drama, and somehow, let's say, it was the first one of a certain amount of games, because now I'm working on other 4 games, so it's going pretty well. And working with you taught me a lot about it. It was
Great.
really, we had a kind of an adventure. We had a journey together.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I mean, of course, we all learned a huge amount of stuff because we came from applied games where the production is way simpler, and the problems are different and so on. And doing a first commercial game, well, maybe if we knew how much hard it was to publish it, maybe we would have never done it. But now we've done it, and it's really cool. So I thank you. I think our time is over. It was really nice talking with you about the soundtrack. And
Thank you, Pietro.
so I think everybody that gets a game should get the soundtrack too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.
So. So hello again, and we're back to live, and so I finished with the interviews, and so I hope this was fun, and it was surely fun for me. In fact, this was so much fun that it was worth making the game just to have this this afternoon of amazing ideas and talks with these amazing game designers. And I will do some gameplay streaming, but not tonight because I'm too tired. And also I don't want to spoil things with the narrative game. So I hope some of you will enjoy it. I know it's not a perfect game, it's not a huge game. It's the first commercial game of a group of independent developers. who had great fun, and we put a lot of work and love in the game, and that's it. We already learned a huge amount of things building it, but also just in releasing it these last 2 days, and from your remarks, and for so many nice, kind words, and also from something from the negative reactions. And always remember that it's you can always get a refund, and but not from us, from the stores. And yeah, I hope I will do more live streaming. This was really smooth, and was thanks to Pino and Matteo of Open Lab, which is my company, our company. They did a wonderful work of setting up all the cameras and the streaming and incoming calls and the microphone. It's all way more complex than one would imagine. And last but not least, I want to thank Caterina Chimenti, who has been helping us, and also sending all the feedback on the social media. She's a great social media manager and PR person. And we will post. I will make a post with thanking all the people who worked on this streaming event this afternoon, to celebrate our little game. But for us, it's been 2 years of intense development, and before that 2 years of experimentation and design. And we're so happy, though we're not very lively, because the energy is over, is finished. And so it's been an amazing trip, and we will soon be ready to create yet another game on narrative and sports and myth and celebration and strange things. So talk soon. Bye.